Lecture 1. Psychology is defined formally as a science which studies mental processes, experiences, and behavior in different contexts. In the following, there was an experiment in which children planting a false memory in which there were children trust was gained from them, and then they were told something that might have happened, and then they were told about something which not happened, like they were lost in a mall. And it was found out that at the end of the day children actually believed it. So this was how false memories were planted in children. However, it had three drawbacks: that the experiment had small sample, and maybe these things actually happened, you never know it, but it was not as hardly traumatic experience as usually happens in SA victims. The Stanford Prison Experiment. Lecture 2. Psych meaning soul, and logos meaning science or study of the subject. Theory is a general explanation as to why a behavior occurs. Hypothesis is a testable prediction often derived from a theory. Case study. It is an in-depth observation of one person in hopes of revealing universal laws. One famous case study is that of Henry Molaison, patient HM. To treat his epilepsy, parts of his brain was removed, the bilateral parts of his medial temporal lobe. While his epilepsy was cured, he lost his ability in some types of memory. This informed about the types of memory and brain functions. Method 2. Survey. A questionnaire about attitudes or behavior was given to a sample of people. It had a representative sample, a sample that is a perfect reflection of a population, but it is only smaller in size. A random sample, a sample that fairly represents a population because each of the members of the sample had an equal chance of being chosen. Naturalistic observation. Observation and recording behavior in naturally occurring situations, trying not to manipulate the situation. It allows the researchers to get a realistic picture of how behavior occurs. Researchers might actually become participants in a group, a technique called participant observation. One disadvantage is the possibility of the observer bias. The observer had a particular opinion about what they expect to see and recognizes only those actions that support the expectation and ignore other actions. Laboratory observation. Observing behaviors in controlled lab settings, used when it is just not practical to observe behavior in a natural setting. This allows greater experimental control, but might behave differently compared to natural settings. Experiment. Precisely controlled studies that try to identify the cause of behavior. All experiments have two variables: the independent variable, the variable manipulated by a researcher, and the dependent variable, which is the consequence of IV on some behavior or mental process. How to design an experiment. To have a design experimental group, these participants are exposed to independent variable treatment. Then we have the control group. These participants are not exposed to the independent variable. This is a comparison group we use to be able to see the effect of the independent variable treatment. Note, the measure is taken for both groups. Random assignment. Assigning participants to experimental and control groups by chance minimizes the pre-existing differences between those assigned to the different group. How much time does it take to make a simple decision? 0.1 second. How would you measure? Time reaction. What experimental design would you use? The example of traffic used here. The reaction time is the time between the presentation of the stimulus and the response, the accuracy of the response. Donald's reaction time experiment. He looked into reaction time in two conditions: when participants respond as soon as light turns on, and when they had to decide whether to press the left or the right button. And from the formula, he found out the time taken to decide was 0.1 second. The values preferred in a psychologist is accuracy, objectivity, skepticism, and open-mindedness, that is, to remove the observer bias. Conclusion.